what I'm going to spend my time talking about with you all this evening is kids who don't respond to us being teachers. So just in case you don't know what that looks like in Indiana, I also have videos of kids having problems, just to make sure you know what we're talking about. So what I plan to do is to first go over some of the challenges we have and consider challenging behaviors as part of a predictable sequence. So we'll look at what do kids look like when they're in different phases of escalation, and we'll talk about what we should do in each of those phases of escalation, which is the technical part. Then we're going to say, let's look at kids who are having these problems and talk about a better way to handle it. So I've got a whole bunch of videos that are going to be the bad way and the good way. So what we've done is we've shot a video of, all made up, I think everything you're going to see today is made up, of a kid having a problem behavior and a teacher handling it in a way that's basically against every recommendation. And then we'll talk about what could have been done differently, and we'll see a video of a teacher handling it better. And I'll talk more about those videos when we get to that point. What I want to make sure we start with, though, is an idea of some of what our challenges will be. Some of the things we need to consider. And some of you that have been with me earlier today are aware of some of this stuff. But first thing we need to think about is kid behavior is very predictable by adult behavior. So if you look at kids that have the kinds of behaviors that challenge us, that make it difficult for us to teach other kids, etc., a lot of what we can predict from kids, we can think about as predictable based upon what we, the adults, which isn't meant to be about it's our fault when kids have problems, because it's not. It's meant to say this: if we know when a kid is likely to have a problem or things that in the environment that tend to predict those problems, we can actively do things to prevent it. So what are the kinds of behaviors that we as teachers in a classroom should have if we want to maximize the probability that kids don't have these problems? And we can do that very specifically for individual kids, but I'm going to talk today more generally what are things that adults can do in those environments to create the kind of successes we're looking for. One big one for us is this: to what degree can you engage a student in something that sets them up to be successful? So if they're not good at math and you and I are doing math and they're failing over and over, it's a giant predictor for problem behaviors. So what we want to think about is, when I do math, how do I engage in a conversation back and forth with a student that leads them to a success? That's what engagement has to look like for us. Sometimes engagement is thought of in a different way, and I like to think there are three ways you can get engagement. One is to be really entertaining as a teacher. That's hard to do every day. Sometimes it's hard to do at all. Second, only teach things that are super interesting. That would be awesome. But the reality is, some of what we teach just isn't that interesting. It might be to you and I, but maybe not so much to kids. And so we can try to make it more interesting for them. And the third way is we go out and we grab their attention and we play with it. We say, what do you think? Have you ever seen that? What would happen if we did it this way? I'm going to do an experiment. What do you think will happen? That engagement is, I'm asking you to be a part of the lesson with me. We can try really hard to be entertaining. We can try really hard to have interesting lessons, but those things are, in reality, harder to do than going out and grabbing the kids. Now, to the extent you can kind of do all three, great. But that's our challenge right off the bat. Kids that are actively engaged in whatever you're talking about, whether it be hardcore academics or otherwise, are far less likely to have challenging behaviors. So we're going to keep coming back to, how do we engage kids? Not all engagement is equal. If you and I are arguing about something, that's an engagement. That's not the kind of engagement we want. So I want you to think about engagement being successful when, as it goes back and forth, it's positive. As I talked to people about it today, I said, we can consider a positive interaction to be one that isn't negative. So it doesn't need to be super happy positive. It needs to be, we had a conversation and we both got information and there was no hostility or argument. That can count. But the bottom line for us will be this: whether or not a kid is engaged is dependent upon the teacher. When kids aren't engaged, it's our responsibility to find a way to engage them. Kids don't automatically just re-engage. We have to keep that going. And again, it's not about fault. There will be times when kids aren't engaged. That's not your fault. It's simply a signal to you, to me, to those of us who work with kids. That kid's not engaged. I need to do something. I need to ask a question. I need to give a different example. I need to be more entertaining. Something has to happen, because when a kid is disengaged, it starts to be a big predictor for us of something else going wrong. I also have tried to hit upon this as we talk about these things. You can predict that these three groups of kids, kids from disadvantaged backgrounds, kids who have been identified with behavioral disabilities, and minority males, will have more problem behaviors. At the same time, we know this: those three groups of kids have more problem behaviors, at least in part because they get less and poorer instruction because of some preconceived notions that we adults have. For instance, if you ask people, is a kid who comes from a lower class neighborhood more likely to have problems? While the answer to that is slightly yes, knowing that alone causes people to treat those kids differently, even if they act exactly the same. If you say to a teacher, here are two kids with problem behavior, or two kids, one has a problem behavior, one does not. Simply putting in the mind of that teacher that one of those students has problem behaviors will mean that that student will get less instruction from the teacher and more negative interaction with the teacher. What our research has shown is that if you just know going into a classroom that you're looking at minority males, those kids will be more likely to have negative interaction with the teacher regardless of whether their behavior was different from anybody else and regardless of who the teacher was. Gender or race don't make a difference. All teachers seem to have these same implicit biases. So one of the things we have to think about as we think about kids escalating behavior and having bigger problems is our job is to prevent. That has to be first and foremost on our mind. If you go into this thinking, now my job is to sit back and look for kids who are having problems and then deal with it, you will have a lot less success than if you can think, how do I deal with these kids before they have a problem? Prevention. And there are levels of prevention. There's prevention of it ever happening in the first place. There's early intervention type prevention, and then there's prevention after the fact of something big and uglier happening. We're going to talk about all three layers. But our big impetus has to be on primary prevention. Nipping it in the bud, find a kid having a problem and nip it in the bud. That's a great idea. You know what's an even better idea? Figure out something to do in an environment that doesn't let that bud come in the first place. It's got to be our first tier of everything we look at. If we don't, these things will be our problem. Because whether we believe it or not, we all have an implicit bias, and it affects the way we deal with kids even if we say it doesn't. So instead of going in and looking for problems, let's go in and look for successes and build successes. Now, having said all that, guess what? It doesn't always work. And when it doesn't work, we're going to see kids go through a set of phases. I'd like to talk about each of these phases. They are predictable. These phases are well accepted in the literature. They were really put forth in a couple of great articles and books by a guy named Jeff Colvin, who's a friend of mine and who has been a big part of putting together what I'm doing here. And what Jeff has shown is that there are specific behaviors that you can see in kids that indicate which of these phases of escalation they're in. Knowing which phase they're in is really important because there are some things that if done at those phases work really well, and there are some things that if done in the wrong phase can make it worse. So we have to know where we're going. I'm going to start with calm. Calm is where all of you are right now, I'm assuming. You can listen and process. You can accept criticism. You can set goals. All of those are things that happen only at the calm phase. So at the calm phase, you'll know a kid is calm because they can follow a direction, handle a consequence. They can take something in stride and set a goal to try to do it again and do it different. That's a calm kid. Now, you all know kids that can do this all day long no matter what happens. And I'm sure you also know kids that hardly anything different happens and all of a sudden they're not calm. Our job at the calm phase is to teach. This is our 1 out of 7 phases here. This is the only phase in which instruction really works. Everywhere else, they're not listening. It only works at the calm. Take advantage. When kids are calm, teach them what to do when they're not calm. After they're not calm, teaching them what to do when they're already not calm doesn't work very well. This is our time. Use the calm phase to talk to kids about what to do when things happen that they don't like, that bother them, etc. So communicate to them what your expectations are. Be explicit with them about what kinds of behaviors are expected. Model with them. Engage them back and forth with practice. This is your opportunity. None of those things are going to work well at any other phase. Feedback at high levels, very important here. As we go up that, feedback becomes less and less effective for us. In fact, it will be counterproductive at some point. So think of that calm phase again as where we'd like to be. When we're not in the calm phase, everything we're thinking about is, how do we get back to the calm phase? Because we really can't deliver our instruction again until we get back there. So here we are in the calm phase, things are going fine, and then suddenly something sets a kid off a little bit. Sometimes it's obvious. One kid points at him and says, "This about you." Well, I see exactly what the trigger is. If I know ahead of time is likely to say that to her and that's going to trigger it, then I want to start thinking before we ever get going, how do I stand between these two? How do I prevent that? How do I change the seating arrangement? How do I give reminders over here about what's appropriate? Because here's what I know. Once the trigger hits, now my job has changed. Now my job is to get rid of irritation. It's a lot easier to prevent it than it is to get rid of it. Some kids, it's almost impossible. Once this thing starts, it's going. So what we're looking for are obvious triggers. Conflicts with other kids. They're facing a consequence from the teacher. They've gotten something wrong over and over again. There's frustration with academics. Those can all be triggers. In my years dealing with kids, I would also say more than half the time, I have no idea what the trigger is. They were going along fine and something irritated them. And if I ask them what it is, they tell me to go away. But we know they've been triggered. Once we know a kid has been triggered, our job is to distract them, to redirect. Don't call attention to their negative behavior. Tell them what you're looking for. So if I say clearly she's been triggered and I can see it, you'll know when a kid has been triggered because they can't quite pay attention. They're very distracted. So I'm looking here and I'm saying, hey, why don't we do this? Yeah, I know, but I can't get my mind off of that thing, that disrespect, that slight, that failure, that when kids are distracted by a trigger, it's hard to get them back. So make very clear statements. I like to think as soon as a kid's distracted or triggered, I want to say, hey, look at this. It's really cool. Come here. I want to show you this. I'm going to distract them. Hey, get out a pencil. I want to have you do something. I'm changing the subject. When we're at the trigger phase, you've got your best chance of changing the subject, distracting them. Come here. Look at this. Oh, this is cool. Did you get that? Did you see it on TV last night? What can you do to distract them? If we can get them away from thinking about it, we have a good chance of breaking the chain. Perseveration, them thinking about it over and over again, will lead this to go up a notch. So we're trying to keep them from perseverating on whatever perceived slight there was in their life. So again, think about giving a direction of something that's completely different. Make it exciting. Use your voice to say, wow, you got to see this. A lot of times I see two kids really arguing and I'll step right between them and say, did you guys see this? You got to see this. Both of you, come here. I want them to think about anything other than what that kid just said to me. It's distraction. If you can't get these kids distracted away from their trigger, it will get worse. Getting worse means they've switched from trigger on up into agitation. You'll know agitation because this is where they absolutely can't focus. You'll see fists clenched, jaws clenched, tight like this. These kids are totally focused on only what their trigger was. They can't even hear you when you talk. I've gone over to kids like this and said, hey, something, and they'll go, I know, go away. It's very quick. I don't want to talk to you. We're not talking. I am focused right now on something that pissed me off. That's all I can focus on. Sorry. When kids get to the agitation phase and they get that quick, stiff movements and tip, you've got to try even harder to distract them. A lot of times I talk to people about you need to get that shiny object and get their attention with it. Hey, look, it's shiny. Look at this. Come here. It's really cool. You can play with this shiny thing. Come here. That's obviously an exaggeration, but that's what I'm thinking when I get to this phase. What do I have to do to get your attention? What could I do with the flash of the lights? What could I do to make you look at me and come here? Because this is something different. I'm not saying knock it off, get away from there. It is a distraction, a redirection, not a reprimand. Reprimands in the middle of a in the middle of a set of escalating behaviors make them go up. That doesn't mean there won't be consequences, but those are not effective until we get back to the calm. Telling a kid, you just earned a consequence, will make them go from agitation to acceleration right now. No consequences during an escalation, only de-escalation techniques. So we started off with redirection and we went to big distractions. Move people around. If knowing that he can see the person that's doing that is a problem, figure out a way to quickly arrange the room for some reason for something we're doing where that eyesight can't be there. Because again, the more they can focus on whatever that trigger is, the worse it's going to be. The hardest part is when I don't know what the trigger was in the first place. So all I can do is keep saying, come here, let's do this, try this, let's. But if I can't get them to unfocus, because I don't know where it is, we're probably going to go up a notch. Going up a notch takes us up to acceleration. here are some things that we should be thinking about as we move into acceleration. Things that teachers can do as part of the regular environment that we know to have an impact on negative student behavior. One is provide praise to others. So instead of me focusing on this student who's doing it wrong and escalating, I'm going to come over and say, wow, I am really impressed about how you guys are getting this done. That's fantastic. You're going to earn all this stuff. That's all we need is that stuff. So I'm not really talking right to her. I'm talking to others around her, but I'm saying the message that I want her to hear. Praise others very loudly and specifically, doing what you want that student to do, and then just kind of make the obvious, but don't have a direct request or response to that student. When you do have to talk to students, always begin your interaction with them when they're having a problem with a question. What would be a better way to do this right now? Where could you sit where you'd feel a little better right now? What kind of activity could we... Always give them a chance to respond with something that would work positively for them. When you say, stop, knock it off, I won't put up with this, there is no response to that. Those are all you're challenging me, and when I get challenged, I'm more likely to go up instead of down. The hard part with a lot of this is, believe me, I know, when you work with kids that do this a lot, they get on your nerves, and it's typical for, and I've been the one at fault of this in my own career, to just get mad and say, enough, which never works. So a big part of thinking about going through this is, how do I keep control of my emotions? So I'm going to go back to what I said when we first started off. Adult behavior is a big predictor of kid behavior in these escalating cycles. Adults escalating is the best predictor we have of kids escalating. So we have to make sure that we aren't escalating our behavior as part of our way of dealing with this. So think about things like, again, the redirection. Hey, why don't you do this? Is it simple? Here's what would be good for you to do. You can ignore these things only to the point where ignoring them makes sense. But if they're actually firing up, you ignoring it isn't helping. I would be more likely to ignore it if I thought I was the trigger. Then I might think, me being the trigger, it makes more sense for me to get out of this right now. But that doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. It just means I'm pretending not to pay attention. Talk with the students, but when you talk with them, talk privately and talk to them about them, not you. When you talk to kids, don't say, I'm bothered by this. I don't like the way you're behaving. I don't want you ruining my class. I don't think this is going to work for us today. It's got to be about them. I notice you look upset. Is there something I could do to help? I notice that you look like things might not be going well right now. Would you like to take a minute? Notice these are all questions. I'm concerned about you, not me, and I have a question. How would you like to deal with this? When I come over there as the adult and say, I care about you, I want you to tell me how I can help, you're far more likely to get a kid that starts coming back down than goes back up. Although none of these are sure things, obviously. These are probabilities. Moving kids can work, but again, moving kids can also be seen as very negative. So we were talking earlier today, when we were talking about these management things, as what if I said to you, I'll give you $1,000 if she agrees to come up and sit right here. Okay? Here are your two options for me. I can do it in one of two ways. Enough! You sit here. Here's the other one. Hey, are you feeling okay? You know what might be really great is if you gave you an opportunity to sit up here. Would that work for you? Come on up here, I'll help you. If you were betting on which one of those would work, which one would you bet on? Clearly, number two is more likely to get a kid to comply. So we have to think about when you ask kids to move or change a seat or do something extra, ask them and make it about them, not you. If you just say, I can see you're really mad and ready to kill somebody, move, damn it, it isn't going to work. It's going to make them kill somebody first and then maybe move. But you've got to maintain your personality as the teacher, not something else. We also can say to kids, you know, right now, the way this is going, you're just going to end up having to do this work later. It doesn't seem good for you to me. So here might be some things you could think about. Would you like to do it like this? Would you like to? But what I'm telling them is, I'm letting you know what the consequence is, but in a really backhanded kind of way. You don't need this. This isn't going to be good for you. There's work. Man, you don't need that. Tell you what, though, like we can solve that problem. You could do this or this. What would you like to do? I'm offering you some solutions, but I'm really telling you that I don't want you to get the consequence that might be coming if you don't solve this. I'm on your side, always on your side. The other thing, again, as we already talked about, is sometimes when I've had really volatile kids that look like they're going, I've just punted on whatever I had going in the class and took it a whole different direction, because that was the only way that I really thought I could get something different going on to take their mind off of it. And one of the things I've realized over the years is that really good teachers are really good at knowing when to punt. That sometimes fighting about this is going to make it worse than backing off and then figuring out a better way to go after it in the future. So as we continue to think about where we are, acceleration is a problem for us. We've switched into a different part of our problem here, in that at the calm, at the trigger, at the agitation, we were thinking about success. That's our focus. At the calm, primary prevention. At the trigger and at the agitation, secondary prevention. Not letting it take off. When we get to agitation and peak, we have a different focus. Safety. At the agitation, at the acceleration, this is where you see kids start doing those things that we might call tantrums, or the most volatile, dangerous types of behaviors. This is where you'll first hear kids start raising their voice and yelling at people, arguing. When kids start to argue with you, don't argue back. All that does is continue the escalation. You at that point, step back. You will hear and see threats, verbal escalations, intimidation. In my career, I've had kids threaten to kill me multiple times, threaten to kill my family, my dog, my yada, yada, yada. You just have to be able to let that roll off your back. We'll talk about it later. But if you right now say, you better shut up about my dog, number one, they're going to talk about your dog twice as much as they ever did before. And number two, it's going to escalate rather than come down because you just let them know that works. So you've got to be able to take those things and let them roll off your back. That's a very hard thing for adults to do sometimes, is that kid disrespected me, I can't get over it. You're going to have to get over it because that's the way it goes. You are going to have to be the bigger person, and you're going to have to let that roll off your back right now. When we go to acceleration, this is when your whole focus turns to keep people safe. Room clear is something we sometimes use at this phase. Room clear would be, I'm not going to move you because you're out of control, so I just kind of get other people to move away. We don't have to move them all the way out of the room, but we need to move them. This isn't a redirection. This isn't a distraction. It's a safety. I don't know what he or she might do next, so I am going to move people away. When you do that, don't come back and have a conversation with the student. At the acceleration, you're just trying to leave them alone. Put a buffer around so they can't destroy anything, can't hurt anybody, and just say this over and over. It's okay, it's over, relax. It's okay. I understand it's over. Just get you relaxed. I just keep saying that over and over. It's okay, it's over. Nobody's just. But what I see often when I observe these things is at that point, the teacher will get everybody else away and then give the stare of death to the kid for a while, which doesn't do any good. Or come back and say, here's what the bad things that are going to happen to you. That also doesn't help. It has to be, I'm on your side. I understand you're angry. We can talk about that. Just get yourself calm. It looks to me like you're starting to calm. Thank you. Just get yourself calm. We don't need to worry about this. You have to use that language and you have to have that personality right now to make them start to calm. I have worked with kids that can calm in 3 seconds, and I've worked with kids that it takes 3 hours for them to calm. You just don't know how long it's going to be. But what you're really thinking about during the days where kids are doing their worst, safety. Safety for you, them, and everybody else. The peak really isn't a phase, it's just the worst. It's the very top of the acceleration. The reason we call it a peak is because if you've worked with kids that are volatile like this on a regular basis, you get to kind of see this happening and see the pattern. Once they do the worst thing they can do, they realize they've done the worst thing they can do and they get kind of embarrassed or back off quick. And I've seen kids pick up a chair, throw it at the wall, and then go, I'm sorry. And they're like, boom, they're coming down quick. And I've also seen kids throw it at the window and then say, I wouldn't have done that, but it was his fault. That's why you need to kill him. But it's a blame projection. I've reached my peak and I kind of realized how much out of control I've been. And now I'm going to start coming down. But that might be a steep come down and it might be a very slow come down. You just have to watch the kids. When we're at the peak, it's the same thing as when we're at the acceleration. Focus on safety. That's our whole thing. Now, if we were ever going to discuss physical restraint, this would be where we would discuss it. I'm not going to talk about physical restraint because my position on that is, if you're not trained to do physical restraint, don't do physical restraint. It's a safety hazard for you and for the kid, and it's a legal hazard for you. Clearly, if there is clear and present danger to somebody, you have to do something to stop that. If you work with kids that have those kinds of issues, you should get trained. Safe physical management. 90% of safe physical management is, when you take that class, 90% of that class is how not to have to do safe physical management. So again, I'm going to say there are times when that needs to happen. General rule, don't put your hands on kids unless it's absolutely 100 you believe clear and present danger. Because again, if you don't know how to do it, you can get hurt, they can get hurt, it's a legal issue, etc. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. Once we leave the peak, we go into, I think, the weirdest of the phases, if we can rate them on weird to not weird. I think number 6 is the weirdest. Number 6 is where they're still mad and could cycle up at any second, but they're coming down. This is where people probably make the second most mistakes. The first most, I think, happens at agitation, when they do things to agitate an agitated kid, makes them go into acceleration. The next mistakes happen at de-escalation. Once the kid says, oh my God, I threw that through the window and I wouldn't have done that, but that was his fault. I'm just saying, but I'm glad that it's over and you're getting yourself calm. I can see you calming yourself. Thank you. Give the most simple direction you could possibly give. You just stay on that side of the room and continue calming yourself. It's okay, just stay there. I appreciate the way you're calming. Get everybody else doing something. Take some time right now, because you're not engaging with this kid at all. Take some time right now to get everybody else doing something. Not that they're going to not watch when you're going back, because this is pretty entertaining for everybody. But I want to be able to say, so thank you all for getting that work done. When you're done with that, please make sure that you go on to this. Then keep an eye on the kid. And this is where I can't give you a, it's this. You got to know your kid. So if you don't know your kid, you got these little tricks. You don't want to go over and get them into a conversation until you know they're all the way down. Here's a trick for knowing if they're all the way down. Ask them to do something so benign that it doesn't really even count. So I've gone over to a kid, I really like, you've really done a great job of calming. Thank you, I'm real impressed. Could I just get you to sit in this seat for a second? Because I need to get something there, and walk away. If you go, get out here, here's what you should think. They're not de-escalated yet. If they go, usually they're very tired. There's this exhaustion having this emotional outburst. Okay, and they move to the next chair. That's just a signal to you that they can follow a direction. Once they follow a direction, I'll usually give them another slightly bigger thing. And then it's time to start saying, here's what I'd like you to do. First of all, nice job of getting yourself calm. Really did a good job of getting yourself back together. Could I just get you to go back and sit in your desk? You don't need to do anything right now. You can get out a paper or something, but don't worry about work. Just get in your desk. Thanks. So I'm having her rejoin us, but I'm not giving her work yet. It's too early. Work your way up to it. Move the seat, move over here, do a little bit of a thing, get back in your desk. Once she's back in the desk, I can then take the next step of moving into what will be recovery. At de-escalation, it's really important you don't do anything to annoy them, because they will go back up really quickly. Remember when I worked in residential treatment, we had this kid who I could never tell when he was back down again. So he was in our downstairs and we had him sitting there, and I'd go over and I'd say, all right, really good job of getting yourself calm. I appreciate it. So tell you what we're going to do next. We're going to go upstairs. And, well, first I made him move. He moved. Okay, great. You're looking calm. Here, what we're going to do. We're just going to go upstairs. You don't need to take a shower tonight. You don't need to. All I need you to do is go to your room, get on your bed. That's all you got to do. So, ready to that? Yeah, I'm ready. We get up. We start walking. He goes, I'm also going to stop and call my mom. No, that's not part of it. Yes, I am. And all the way back up to the top, the whole thing started over. And I learned from that kid, you have to ask a few more questions before you can be certain that it's time to move. So the next time I would say, no, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go up. You just have to go do this. You have to do this. So we're going to just go up the stairs, right? Yeah. We're not stopping anywhere, right? We're just going to go to your bedroom. So we're not calling anybody. We're not. And I would just basically have to talk through, are you in agreement with me of all of these things? And honestly, there was one time I know of that I did all of that, and he still said, I'm calling my mom on the way up the stairs. So you just don't know sometimes. You just make it your best bet. If you can get them to follow a few very simple directions, it's a lot easier to believe they're going to do the next thing. But remember, that next thing is very simple. The next thing happens during the phase that we call recovery. Recovery is where I try to get you back to doing what everybody else does. We're not talking about consequences yet. I'm getting you back involved with what everybody else does. You're at your desk, you're doing work, you're doing things. I want you to get some success back. And once you get some success back, that recovery turns into calm. When the recovery turns into calm, we can have a conversation about what happened. What would have been a better way? Do you know what the consequence is going to be because of that? That's right. I wish that didn't have to happen for you. So what could I do to help you remember a better way next time? And there's our instruction getting started. But we don't do that until we get back to calm. At the recovery phase, it's just getting them into the routine again. How do we slowly get you doing what everybody else does? And I can say, thanks for being on task. Thanks for getting your work done. We're in the calm. Now we can have that discussion. There's no rush on that. It's not like within 5 minutes we need to have that discussion. Find a time when you can have a real one-to-one conversation about that. You don't want a day, but you want to find a time that really works to have a real conversation. The big debriefing happens at the calm phase. So here are our big ideas. Take advantage of the calm phase to teach kids what they should be doing to be successful and how to handle it when they're not calm. With a lot of kids, what we've ended up doing with those really volatile kids I worked with in kind of a lockdown setting is we teach them a code word. Here's what you've got to look forward to. Home visit. And that isn't, we're going to take your home visit away. It's as something very starts getting going home, it's just a reminder to you, check it, get there. We taught you that during calm. I'm going to say that as a reminder to you. So they see it as a prompt, not as a threat. It's something we've talked about ahead of time. Second, notice when kids are agitated. You can notice if you're looking right at a kid really in a more than just big classroom scanning fashion. If you're looking right at them, you probably notice the trigger. But you'll notice the agitation even in a group. When kids are agitated, don't do something to agitate them. It will make it worse. We've got to distract, big distraction at that phase. When you get to acceleration and peak, this is on safety. Avoid conversations during de-escalation and recovery. We want to get back to calm so we can teach and debrief. Those are our big ideas. And here's a slide that we've already shown. So, as we get ready to start looking at some videos, here's something I think is really important. You have to teach your kids what the consequences are for major problem behaviors. You don't need to teach ahead of time every consequence for everything that might come up, but the better job you do of that, the better. And here's why. If I were to just come up to her today and say, don't have your pen in your hand, consequence. She's going to say, that jerk just gave me a consequence, because it wasn't communicated ahead of time. Here's me communicating it ahead of time. Hey, it's real important that you keep your pen in your hand, because that way we know that you're with me and you're listening, so you get the grade, because you have to get an A in this class. So remember to keep that pen, because if you don't, then you'd have to stay after. I don't want you to stay after. I want you to get the pen and be able to be here. So I'm going to remind you, okay? I know you can do this. I remind her, and tomorrow she doesn't have the pen. Here's the way I approach that. Oh, man, you forgot the pen thing. We talked about this. Now you're going to have to stay after. How can I help you remember? Because I don't want you to have to stay after. I'm sorry that's happening. I'm sorry you made that choice. It's on you, not on me. The more we have talked about those consequences ahead of time, you're taking responsibility for it, not me. I don't want to be the bad guy that came over here and delivered a bad thing to you. I want you to know what those things are, and I'm on your side. When that kid does something really big and really horrible, I want my response to be very teacher-like. Oh, I'm sorry you made that choice. You know, when you get back from suspension, maybe we could talk about ways that you and I could help you remember. I'm on your side. But that was your choice, not mine. You knew ahead of time that's what would happen. I'm not giving you a suspension. You earned it. You did the thing. So you have to tell kids ahead of time what the consequences are so that they take responsibility. And use this wording, your choice. When they do it right, wow, you made a good choice and you earned that thing. I'm not giving you that thing. You earned it. But all that comes with letting them know ahead of time. I'm going to move on to problem behaviors. Okay, disruptive behaviors are those that get in the way of us being able to teach or others, kids being able to learn. You know them. You've seen them. I am doing something loud while you're talking so that nobody else can hear. That's a disruptive behavior. So first things first, when considering kids with disruptive behavior, think about what are they getting out of this? Is this an attention-seeking? Is this a way for them to get out of the lesson? Do they like my attention or the other kids, or they'll take attention from anybody for anything? Model with them ways to appropriately get those things. Hey, if you want attention, I'm going to give you chances in class to do these things right at you. Here's how we do that. Find ways to replace that functionally. Use lots of reminders with disruptive kids. When you know they're getting to a point where they're going to want attention or a break, give them lots of reminders about what they need to do to make that work. Consistent routines are very helpful with these kids. So here's the first one I want to show you. This is a disruptive kid in a classroom, and the teacher does not handle this real well. I'll give you just a quick rundown on all the videos you're going to see. These are actor kids, and the adults aren't even actors. They're friends of mine, so critique their acting. Just look at the thing. You know, the biggest challenge with shooting these is that all the kids fight over who gets to be the bad kid in every one of these. So we've tried to make sure everybody got their chance. Here's a kid that comes in and he's agitated on the way in. The teacher doesn't recognize the agitation and goes after him.
Caleb, cool it. Okay, everyone, I need you to get your papers out from yesterday. Those need to be on your desk. Caleb, if you do not have yours out, that will be a 0 for this assignment. Caleb, I am not going to play these games with you today. Pick up the paper or go to the office. Pick it up. Caleb, I don't know what your problem is, but you will not be disruptive in my class. Do you understand what I'm saying?
What y'all looking at?
That's it. To the office. Out.
Okay, so here comes a kid clearly agitated, and the teacher never takes off of this kid once and continues to point right at him and pick at him and pick at him and pick at him, and it eventually sets him off. So the way I write these is they can't remember word for word scripts, so I just say, here's what I'd like to see. Kid, I'd like to see you be in here and be really mad. Teacher, I want you to just keep picking at him. Kid, I want you to get madder and madder and finally do something big. That's what they acted out. So that's the way it looks. What I liked about the way the teacher did it wrong was that it was, once I've decided this kid's got a problem, I'm not going to take my eyes off of that kid. And if you watch a kid that closely for a problem, you're going to find a problem. She was Hawkeye on that kid, waiting for a problem, and it happened. Second, she continually said, you're not going to ruin my class. I don't care about you. You're not going to ruin my class. This is about me, not about you. Every little thing, do this, don't do it that way, do it this way, pick that up. It was everything wrong, which again is what we were looking for. So this is what we'd like to see in. When you've got a kid who's disruptive, stop, give one very clear direction. Hey, can you show me doing this? Hey, come here, I want to show you something. Could you do this? This would be great. Give him one thing to do. She gave him, you need to sit down, you need to be quiet, you need to get out your paper, you need to get your work done. Well, he wasn't going to do any of those things. Don't ask him to do more than he's going to do. Give him one thing that you could use to build on to the next thing. Second, go over to him and have the conversation, not in front of the whole world. Third, make it about him. You need to pass my class. You can do this, not about you. Then ask, is there something we could talk about? Do you need something? And when a kid says, yes, I need this or that, say, thank you for being honest with me. Let's you and I talk. What I usually do, though, is say, tell you what, everybody else is going to do all the problems right now. If you can just get problem 6 started, I'm going to go over here and then I'll come back and we can talk, but get going on 6. So I'm going to make you do a little bit of something to get more of me, just so that I can make sure that you aren't doing this just to get me. You got to do some work along with that, but I am coming back to talk to you about your problems. So we'll work together. You help me by doing this, I'll help you by doing that, and we get this going back and forth. Now, when we shoot the problem, like I told you, it's very loosely stated, same with the solution. So when we shoot the solution, I say, this time, come in the same way, student, but teacher, make a direction for everybody in the class, then go talk privately to the student. Make sure you say something about it's in their best interest. Talk to him about if he can get just one thing done, not everything, and you get what you get. So when I look at this, I could think that could have been done a lot better. A lot of the pieces are there, and it gives us talking about, if you were a teacher or if you were observing that teacher, what might you have said could have been done a little bit differently?
Okay, everybody, I need you to get out your papers that we were working on yesterday and start on problem number 7. Problem number 7. Caleb, look, you almost were finished with this yesterday. I want you to start here on number 7. You know how to do these problems. It's just like number 6 from yesterday. So can you go ahead and get started? I need you to make a good choice.
Man, I'm not in the mood today.
I can see that you're not in the mood, Caleb, but I really need you to get this assignment finished, okay? Make a good choice. You need to pass this class.
Man, you know Mr. Carson gave me detention for nothing?
I can see that you're upset and with Mr. Carson, and you and I can talk about that detention later, okay? But right now it's important to focus on math and get this problem done. Keisha, nice job. Great choice, Caleb. Nice job.
One of the things that I would like to have seen in that video that didn't come out was I would like to have seen her talk a little bit more about, I care about you. To me, there was a little bit of a almost phoniness to her, I care about you. And I don't think that's the way that person is, a friend of mine. But it came across that way in the acting, and I really would like to have heard a little bit more about, I'd like to help you with that Mr. Carson thing. Instead of just saying, we'll talk about that later, I'd have said, I'm interested, I care, tell you what, you do this and I'll come back and talk to you. I would have been more explicit about what I'm going to do to help you. But it was clearly better than the first one. I'm going to, for time's sake, move on to the next thing, which is provocative behavior. Provocative behaviors are those behaviors which are designed to provoke adults. So, if you are provoked, it worked. So when kids do say things, wear things that are clearly inappropriate just to be inappropriate, and you are offended by it, you have reinforced them for that. We must be able to yawn at provocative behaviors. Provocative behaviors in the school tend to be in the form of dress code violations, inappropriate language, sexually inappropriate comments, those kinds of things. And they're purposeful. They're done to get a shock. You can't be shocked by things kids do. It's simply, was that a respectful thing to say? You and I are going to need to talk about that. It can't be, I am personally offended by that, because that's exactly what provocative behaviors are for. You can't let them see you sweat on these things. So here is me as a teacher being pretty much of a jerk to a kid who is trying to be provocative. Guys, come on in, take a seat. Nope, dress code violation, not coming in with that shirt on.
But my mom gave it to me.
I don't care who got it for you, it's inappropriate, you're not wearing it here.
Well, if my mom says it's okay to wear, then it's none of your business.
It's my business because it's inappropriate. Out.
What's your problem?
You need to leave until you get that shirt fixed, because it's against the dress code. Stupid punk trying to come into my class wearing this shirt. I made a bigger deal out of that shirt than he ever hoped he would get by wearing that shirt. The kid doesn't wear the shirt with something really inappropriate on it, thinking, I hope no one notices me today. They wear it for what it is. And when you make a big deal about it, again, that's the reinforcer. So if it's super inappropriate, you just simply say, yeah, here's back to what we've talked about. The dress code violation is this. This is what dress code is. That's why I don't think that one's going to work for you. What are you going to do to fix it? You know, I don't want to see you get in trouble. Can you fix that? So I would let kids try to fix this. If it's an inappropriate comment, then I think there needs to be an apology or some sort of restitution. But can we work this out? But I'm not going to make a big deal about it because that's what you want. I am going to be calm about it. It's simply a violation of the rule. Give them a choice. Here are some things you could do. What do you think? How do you want to handle this? So I had this kid once. This is one of my favorite real war stories. Had this kid once when I was a self-contained EBD teacher in a high school. This was a younger kid in the high school. He was on my caseload, and one morning I was in my room and he came walking by the doorway slowly, and he's wearing a Groucho glasses with the mustache, and the nose is a penis shape. And so I'm thinking, did I just see walk by here what I thought? So he's a behavior disorder kid. He's on an IEP. I just wander slowly down the hall behind him, and as he stops, I come up and I say, hey, that's pretty funny, man. Where'd you get that? How much did that cost? Yeah, you know what? There is no way you make it through the day with that. You're going to get it taken away, and that would be a shame because you paid your own money for it. But think about what it means around here. What we said is being respectful. That doesn't make it. So what are you going to do to fix that, to make sure it doesn't happen? Oh, I'll just keep it in my pocket. I don't think that'll work. I'd put it in my desk for you for the day if you make sure it goes home at night, or we could do this or that, but it's back on you. You make a choice. If he says, I'm wearing it, then you made the choice for the consequence. But as soon as I say, that's disgusting, I'm horrified, well, I've already reinforced the whole thing already. So here's a better way of handling that kid with the shirt. And have a seat. Thank you. Hey, Stephen, hang on here a second. I want to talk to you. Come on in, guys. Have a seat. You know what to do. Come on in. Welcome. Thanks, guys. Come on in. Hey, you know, that shirt is really pretty inappropriate. I don't think you're going to make it through the day. You're going to end up getting in trouble if you wear that shirt.
My mom got it for me. So.
That's even more of a reason why you wouldn't want to lose that shirt, right? Because if you wear it through the day, you are going to get in trouble. See, the thing is, because it's so inappropriate to get in dress code, if I were to have to see you wearing it out here, I'm going to have to go tell the principal. I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't want you to get in trouble for it, but it's up to you. So I'll tell you what we could do. You could come in here. I've got another shirt I could have you wear, or I can give you a pass to go to PE to get another shirt. But you're going to have to make a choice of how to fix this.
I'll just take your shirt.
I think that's a good choice for you. Come on in, I'll get it for you. The other thing I should have mentioned up front is that because I wrote these, I get to have all of them have a happy ending. And in the real world, that may have worked, or it may not have. And if he would have said no, I said, well, okay, that's the choice you've decided to make. Here's what the consequences will be, and I'd have gone on with doing my thing. But simply put, when we handle these things in this way of thinking about being calm, giving a direction, giving a choice with that direction, it's yours, you've got to make that, you're the one that controls your behavior, not me, and letting them do that is a better probability for getting what we want in the end than what they want. Moving to the next behavior, which is kids not doing what you ask them to do, which happens at times. Sometimes they say no, and sometimes they just don't do it and ignore you. And sometimes they pretend like they're doing it, but they're not doing it. Non-compliance should start with us teaching kids how to and when to, with the timing with which you follow a direction. Make sure that's something we talk about every day by saying, thank you for following that direction. I really appreciate that. Show kids that are modeling what you want and call attention to them. When you see that there's a kid that is not doing what we want, then we have to switch gears. Let's take a look at a kid who's being non-compliant.
Okay, so now everybody should be able to do this on your own. So what I want you to do now, go ahead and do the next 2 problems in the book all by yourself. Go ahead.
I can't. I don't have a book.
We'll find one.
That's mine.
Finders keepers.
Seriously, Caven, get to work.
I don't have a book or pencil. I need to go to my locker.
No, there's not time for that right now.
Do it without a book.
Or I could take yours.
Caven, get to work.
Are you deaf? I said I don't have a book.
Then you have a 0 for the day.
Fine. Whatever.
So what the teacher did was basically gave that responsibility back to the kid. Hey, I can't find a book. Go find one. Well, I guess one could argue that's what the student was doing for the rest of that video. I wouldn't have given that back to the kid, or I would have made a very specific, here's where the book is, get that. But just to say go find one is really setting up that kid to be non-compliant. So what you want to do is give your direction, and then if a student's not doing it, be very neutral but very direct. Your direction was this. Yeah, but your direction was this. This is what kids get really good at. I would love to follow your direction. Here's 12 reasons why I can't. This is what we have to go back to. And I will help you with all 12 of those as soon as you do this. Well, it's no reason for me to go sit down if I don't even have a book or a pencil and I need to get a drink and go to the bathroom and my locker needs to be... And I will be willing to help you with all of those things once you sit down and get out your paper. Why would I bother sitting down and getting out a paper if I don't have these? And I told you, I'm willing to help you with those things. You follow a direction. Make them follow a direction before going on to whatever issue they have with not being able to follow directions are. You show me you'll follow my direction, and I'll help you with your issue. When I help you with your issue, then I'll expect that you'll do the next thing, and when you do the next thing, I can help you with whatever your next issue is. But if you don't do that, they lead you on this wild goose chase. Oh, you need a pencil? Yeah, let's get that. Now you can get to work. I wish I could, but I still need to use the restroom. Oh, we'll go to the restroom. When you get back, you'll work. I could, but I need... Make them do something before each one of those things. If they don't ever go sit down, they were never going to do any of this in the first place. You're just going to find out a lot sooner, and it can be their choice. Well, here's your choice. You can go sit down and have me help you with that, or if you're not sitting down, you're receiving zeros and you're going to end up being in here later. I don't think that looks good for you, but it is your choice. You can get all the things you want by following this direction. It's up to you. I'm on your side. I hope you do it that way, but I don't control your behavior. You do. So what's your choice? And just keep that broken record thing going. On this particular video, it's edited poorly, so there's a point where the kid says, I can't, I need to get a book, a pencil, whatever, and the teacher says, why don't you just have a seat and I'll come back there and help you. That part isn't edited in so that he gets back there and says, I told you to have a seat. You never heard that part. So
everybody should be ready to do this now on your own. So the next thing I want you to do is the next 2 problems in the book all by yourself. Okay? Go ahead.
I can't. I don't have a book.
Okay, I'll help you with that in just a second, Caven. Okay, just a minute.
That's mine.
Finders keepers.
Caven, your direction was to be in your seat.
But I don't have a book or pencil. I need to go to my
And
locker.
I said I would help you with that in just a second, but your first direction was to be in your seat. Once you're in your seat, I'll help you get a pencil and a book. Okay? Okay, thank you, Caven. I'll go ahead and get you a book and a pencil, and you're ready to go. Thank you for following directions.
Notice on the last one, when it was just a yes you will, no I won't, yes I will, it escalated back and forth until the student was excluded himself. ran out of class. This time it was just very simple, matter of fact. Here's your options. You do this, I'll find stuff for you. But, very simple. You do that, the options are on your side. You can get this stuff, but you got to do this. What's your choice? Which option are you going to take? I'm on your side. I'm giving you the option to make this work. Again, notice in all of these ones where it's the second version, the one that works, the teachers are very calm. They don't get upset or excited about things. If you ask teachers, what is the problem behavior you see most in a school, they'll tell you non-compliance. If you ask them, what's the behavior that bugs you the most, they will say disrespect. I think of disrespect as being closely related to provocative behavior. The purpose of disrespect is to get under your skin. So, if someone's disrespectful to you and it bugs you, they're going to keep doing it. You cannot let kids bug you. It's simply that wasn't respectful. You know the consequence. I'm not bothered. I'm not upset. I'm an adult. So to do this, you've got to teach what does it mean to be respectful. That should be, I would say, something you teach as a school-wide. What does it mean to be respectful of others? What does that look like when you disagree with somebody? What does it look like when you really have a conflict with somebody? What does that look like in the classroom? What does that look like on the playground? What does it look like at the bus stop? What does that look like at the dance? Those are all things we teach. So we start by being very clear about what it means to respect other people. And we call attention to it throughout the year. I really like the way you guys did that in a respectful way. I'm impressed by how respectfully you guys keep talking about it. What respect is and what it means and what those examples are. So you've always got to be thinking, who's the adult here? And when the kid says something really rude and disrespectful, I won't make a big deal about it. I'm simply going to say, think about what it means to be respectful, and you and I need to talk later about why that doesn't work. And I go right back to what I'm talking. You and I are going to talk, but I am not going to stop class because you disrespected me. I'm too big for that. If I'm such a small person that if I think a kid disrespected me, I need to stop everything I'm doing and run over and argue with them, then I'm really a small person. So, be the big person. Yeah, I already said, and that isn't respectful. You and I probably need to talk about why. See me after class. Keep going. If I see you in the hallway and you do that, hey, you and me, come over here. Why was that not respectful? Okay, what would have been a better way? So, how do you think you could fix this? What could you do to make this right? I'm not upset. I'm a little bit disappointed that you made that choice. Your choice. I'm still the adult here. I work with the sticks and stones break my bones thing. I don't gonna jump off of a ladder because you called me a name. So, when you think about disrespect, think about how can you communicate to kids that you aren't playing that game? That is your choice. I'm sorry you made it, but I don't fall for it. Here's what you could have, should have done instead. When I was teaching, I remember a kid saying, I don't think that's disrespectful. Well, that's a good reason why you and I should meet later to rediscuss this. Because I don't think you're quite capturing what we were teaching with that. So that's a good reason to have more discussion. But you can't get mad. And like I said earlier, when you do, you invite more. And I've told you all that people threatened to kill me and kill when I worked in residential treatment. And if ever someone would have said, I'm going to kill your dog, and if I said, you better shut up about my dog, the whole rest of my career in that institution, kids would have been walking around behind me going, woof. And it's my fault for letting them get to me. You are simply a teacher. This is right, this is wrong. I've taught the rule. When you make a mistake, I'm going to call your attention to it, and whatever consequence we have for that, you earned. I don't give it to you gleefully. It is part of the system. That's what we do to make sure that you're learning to be a productive citizen out there. So you have to continue to have that. Again, when I'm in schools, very often I see even adults in the office saying, "No, I won't take that kid back in my room. He was disrespectful to me." Like, but you're an adult and that's a kid. Get over it. When they come back, you need to have a conversation. Here's why that wasn't respectful. That's why you earned that consequence. What could you and I do to help you remember to do that right next time? But if you're going to hold a grudge against a kid for being disrespectful, they're going to do it more because that's fun. It's fun to get under the skin of an adult. And my friends are going to reinforce me big time for this. So we have to be smarter than that, and we have to have more control than that to make it work. I have one more that I want to do, so we got 5 minutes. Aggressive behaviors between two students. Again, we could talk about it's a really big fight, the restraint and that kind of stuff. I'm going to talk about it, verbal altercations, because most physical altercations start with a verbal altercation. So what we're going to do is we're going to think through. If I see kids arguing, what should I do? And, well, before we do that, let's just watch a video. So I'm playing the teacher again in this one, and there are some kids arguing, and I more or less ignore them.
Move or I'm gonna punch you, okay?
Wow, that's really scary. I'm shaking.
Guys, every day the same thing, whining about who gets what chair. It's like a couple of babies. Figure it out.
I agree, he is a baby.
Well, figure it out.
You know what? I'm not gonna ask you one more time.
Find another seat.
So I'm the teacher. I am walking down the road, and these two kids are arguing with each other, and it's escalating, and my response is to say, "You're acting like babies," and walk away. It's like I wanted to get in on the bullying as it was going on. Calling names to people, even if it's two people, doesn't de-escalate. Calling them both a name escalated both of them. So what I want to be thinking about is, when I see kids that are escalating one another, I have to distract them. Pull out your shiny thing. Find a way to get them distracted or help solve the problem. Here is an issue, though, with helping to solve the problem. They disagree. If you have to pick a winner, one of them will be happy and one will escalate bigger. So what I always try to think about is, what's a benign solution just for today? What's a way to make you both happy today? Tomorrow, when you're both calm, we can solve this problem. But trying to solve it when you're both escalating means one of you is going to get worse. So here's a thought or a way that might happen.
Don't move, I'm gonna punch you.
Wow, that's really scary. I'm shaking.
Hey guys, look, we have a seating chart. Who's supposed to be sitting right here?
Me.
I've been sitting here for forever.
All right, here's what let's do for today. We're going to flip a coin to see who does this, but for right now, why don't you just sit at my desk? It's got the swivel chair, it's comfortable. Go over there.
Okay.
All right?
I'll sit there.
Now, I know you wanted to sit here today. We'll flip a coin for the future, but this is where we'll be today. So they're both agitated. Calling one a winner and one a loser will make one go down and one go up. So for today, I'm just going to distract them. I'm going to find a way to give them different directions, make everybody happy. When they come to class tomorrow and they're both happy and calm, we'll flip that coin. And what I'm going to do, though, before I even flip that coin is I'm going to set the occasion for the loser. One of you is going to get this chair. The other one, here are some options. You could sit here, you could sit there. I'm going to give you a choice. Whoever gets it wrong, whoever loses, so really there's not a loser. I'm going to make it better. But that little speech wasn't going to work when they were both already agitated. I needed to do something different. In summary, we can't prevent kids from having escalating behaviors. That's part of what happens. But we can do things that effectively maximize our probability of being able to deal with these kids in a successful way. You have to set it up so that you know what to do. This is your choice. Because the more you say, no, you have to do, the more they go up. You've got to be able to tell them ahead of time what it is they should do so that when the escalation comes, you simply provide the reminder as a choice and let them make it. There isn't really another option because, like I said, when you start demanding a kid who's agitated, it only makes their agitation go up. Are there any questions about what was actually a very quick and simplistic look at all of this? So again, thank you all very much for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you.